Good morning, everyone, and welcome to another episode of Good Morning Soul. I hope you guys are having another beautiful day, and if not, then hopefully I can cheer you up in any form or capacity. Today, I wanted to talk about good old video games, and there's a lot, we're gonna go back in my childhood again and talk about the early days. I remember as a kid, my sister had like a NES. I would go to like my grandmother. She had like a PlayStation 1 at her house. And I remember, in our own house, we had like a PlayStation 1 and we had a Nintendo 64. I don't remember what my first video game was. Like, my brother was obviously, like 2 years older than me, so he was able to, just show me video games he had. If I were to remember some of the earliest games I played, I remember Legend of Zelda Majora's Mask. I remember, just other Nintendo 64 games like Pokemon Snap. I remember, what were some of the other ones? GoldenEye, even though I never got into that. Paper Mario, Donkey Kong 64, Super Mario 64, Star Fox 64, super into that. I got into a lot of the Nintendo 64 games, even though I never really beat any of those games, and I still haven't. I very much would like to one day, but some of them are fucking hard. Like I tried to play through Donkey Kong 64 like in my teenage years, and it was just like fuck. Like all the stuff that like is past where I got, like I was just like, damn, this is gonna take a minute, and I never was able to do it. And nowadays, like, I don't even want to bust out my Nintendo 64. I don't want to see which games are still even working. Like, that's a lot of work. Like, I'll just wait until it's on whatever Nintendo shop and play it there, because I'm lazy like that. But, there's a bunch of HD remasters, and I want to play those, so I might as well wait till those come out. But, until then, I'll just look at my Nintendo 64 cartridges like with longing. But I also remember a couple PlayStation 1 games we played a lot. I remember Tarzan, I played that a lot. Played it was like Amazing Spider-Man 2 or something, whichever one has like Stan Lee voicing over the beginning. In Spider-Man, he's like fighting the Shocker and like running around the city, that was a fun game. I remember as a teenager when I moved into my grandpa's house, like, cause that game was at her house, my grandma's, so I was able to play it again. I was like, oh my god, the flood of memories, right? That was another great game. And that's like my earliest childhood memories. Like, I didn't finish games. I would just restart the games over and over again for whatever reason. Like, I've probably played the beginning to Paper Mario, Donkey Kong 64, Star Fox 64, Pokemon Snap. I've played the beginning to all those games, like, probably at least, like, 10 times. Pokemon Snap, I've played to completion, obviously, because it's a super short game. I've played that to completion, like, at least 10 times. I could probably do a speedrun of Pokemon Snap. I know, like, to this day, I know, like, all the hidden secrets to that game, like, how to get every single Pokemon. Like, it's a super easy game for me to play. Like, it's super relaxing. I love Pokemon Snap. But as time went on, the PS2 was a big thing. My mom, my parents got my brother and I a PS2, and my cousins, they got a PS2 on the same Christmas. Like, it was a big deal. And I really remember some of my favorite games coming out back then. I remember Kingdom Hearts. My brother rented it, and, ever since then I was like, God, this is like a perfect video game. I remember playing a lot of Jak and Dexter, Ratchet and Clank, and I went back and played Jak and Dexter all the way through. That was a great game. I remember the Dragon Ball Z games. Played through all those. Great experiences. I remember on the PS1 going back again, like Digimon games, like Digimon Rumble. Played through those were fun. And then, as time went on, the PS2 games I was playing, started to morph a little bit. I was getting a little bit more mature. I remember, and I've gone through like my history of like when I got my GameCube and that's when I play like games like Resident Evil 4. And you know, it never really ends because I'm still like not like I'm still just now a full adult. So like only now am I like able to like look back and be like, okay, this is my growing up with video games. So like even like my teenage years, like I was able to go back and play a lot of games, but I played through all the Kingdom Hearts games, all the Pokemon games. Obviously I was super into Pokemon. And what else was I playing on like the PS2? Because I feel like there's more that I'm forgetting during that time period. A lot of dumb licensed games. I remember like renting SpongeBob and like the Nickelodeon games, which weren't terrible, but obviously they don't have that much substance to them. And you know, I wasn't really able to tell which games were bad back then. They're all just video games to me, and they're all like fun to some extent. It was just like games I couldn't get into and games I could. That was like the real big difference between video games back then. And a lot of like the games I played don't even like represent like what I like now. Like the games I like now are like action RPGs. Like if there was a genre I was super into or still super into, like action RPGs. I like the like easy access of like action platformers and all that, like simple stories, you know, point A to point B, get through the game, you're done. God of War stuff. Oh, that's another one. God of War. I played through all the I played through God of War 1 and 2 when I rebought my PS2. That was another really good series. But anyway, yeah, action RPGs, like the action accessibility I really love, but I really like numbers, I really like leveling up characters, I like customization, the stuff you only get with RPGs. So like Kingdom Hearts is a perfect example of like, oh, that. Like you get to level up your guy, and you also get to like just fuck around. Another example would be like Fable games. Perfect example. That's like my favorite type of video game, the infamous games. Like games where you just fuck around, like easy to play, great motion to it, great feel to it. Feels like you're actually in the game, whereas a lot of RPGs are like you stare at the characters from down below, that you just stare down at them and just tell them what to do. Whereas action games, you actually feel like you're the character. But yeah, that's kind of like my origin story for video games. Like there's so much of my childhood, like I don't ever remember not knowing like video games. Like I can specifically remember how I got into reading, like, and I can kind of remember how I got into movies, but I've always been into video games. It's kind of like my earliest art form was video games. And there's so many great games that I still have yet to play, so my taste for video games isn't fully complete, I feel like. There's so many indie games and other types of games. Like I've never played a racing game. I've never played like a big MMO. I've never played stuff like that. So and you know, video games are still always changing. There's going to be, I assume in the next 10 years, we're going to get at least like 3 to 4 new styles, ways to play games and genres of video games. Like motion games weren't a thing a couple years ago, but now they are. And like even games like Pokemon Go, like that wasn't possible a couple years ago, but now it is. Like the unlimited potential with video games completely exceeds all other art forms. Video games are going to be like the end goal of art, I feel like once they're in their final form. But anyway, until that day comes, we're just going to be sitting here talking about it in our podcast for our morning shows, which I hope you enjoyed today's episode. I'll see you guys tomorrow morning with another episode of Good Morning Soul, and until then, with that, I leave you.